Welcome back to the Tim Anderson Podcast, everybody. I'm Tim. That's my buddy Ryan over there on the left-hand side of the screen. Rhino, my friend, my pal. How are you? You're like a time bomb. Just say how you're doing first, good or bad. Just no details yet. Just
I'm fine.
Good having you here, Rhino. It's nice to see you. And on the other side, of course, battling, nursing. But he's poured the hard stuff here. He's ready for tonight's podcast. The coach, the coordinator, and the owner of the Green Bay Packers, Zach Neighbor. Zach,
hey,
good
Tim.
having you here.
It's good to be here. I think, having a week off and then having to rattle a few cages here back day one, I kind of burnt out my voice.
Yeah, we had some teachers that couldn't make it in today. They were already taking day 10. They needed a 10th day, apparently. 9, not enough. So
it must be rough. I'd love to get the cushy job.
I went to my boss this morning and I said, how do I get their schedule? Like, just let me know if there's something I got to do. Do I got to make a call? Do I got to get my union rep in here? Like, what do I got to do to get that schedule? Because that would be swell. Because I was in at 6:05 this morning because I needed to get things done. And it was like, man, there's no time to waste. So, but trimester 2 is off and running. It's the longest trimester of the year, but we're ready to get it going. So that'll be fun. It's 58 days, but we can do it. 1 down, 57 to go. Let's work backwards tonight, guys, as we talk football. Of course, we got another nice Dad Talk on the horizon, a post-holiday edition of Dad Talk. Be interested to hear how the holidays went for everybody here, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on.
Boy.
There is a football game happening as we speak, and it has implications for us in the Eliminator. It's Browns v. Broncos. What is the score right now, gentlemen?
10-7 Browns.
10-7 Browns. We want the Browns to win that game because that would get the Broncos to 7-6, put the Colts in a position where they could tie them with a win next week. So we are actively rooting.
Colts fans.
We are all Colts fans the rest of the way.
That's tough.
Because everybody else kind of crapped out in the moment when we sort of needed them most. Yes,
talk
this
about
week.
Shit in the bed.
It was a tough week for some of our teams, but it makes the Eliminator an interesting talker later on when we get to it. So, a lot of teams had a chance to get back in this thing, put some pressure on the Broncos, but it really is just the Colts at this point. Somebody else will have to make a really amazing run, and the Broncos will have to fall apart for that to work out. So let's work backwards. Let's go back to Thanksgiving Day, or actually the day after. First, the headline of this one, Matt Eberflus, Chicago Bears.
You're fired! What?
Matt Eberflus fired as the head coach of the not the Denver Broncos, we wish. No, Sean Payton is still the coach of the Denver Broncos last we checked. Matt Eberflus is the coach of the Chicago Bears, or at least he was. Friday morning, he was relieved of his duties following an apocalyptically bad final 35-40 seconds of that game. Ryan, I'll start with you here. First of all, we kind of saw this firing coming for a few weeks. That thing has been off the tracks. You're hearing a lot of stuff behind the scenes that, man, it really got tense in those locker rooms after the game. But your thoughts on the firing, your thoughts on kind of where the Bears need to go from here. Like, I know you're a big Ben Johnson guy, but is it that simple?
I don't know if it's that simple. What I'll say is, I mean, it's surprising in that the Bears have never fired a head coach midseason. It's the first time in their franchise history, dating back the 100+ years they've been around, that they've fired a coach midseason. Wild. So, I mean, I think it's well deserved that Eberflus would be the only one that has that honor. I think, Zach, was that stat that you sent that he's the worst coach in one-score games in NFL history?
Yeah, I think it was with guys who had been in at least 15 of them or something like that. But, yeah, it was not good. And it was the worst of all time.
Yeah. I mean, and where do you go from here? I mean, yeah, Ben Johnson's a good pick, but will he want to go there is the question, right? You get Caleb Williams and you have kind of a load of offensive weapons, but there are termites in that building, man. And it just kind of feels like whatever can go wrong for Chicago kind of does go wrong. Do you want to play Minnesota, Green Bay, and Detroit 2 times each every year with the way that they're playing this year? And, Minnesota the wild card with the rookie quarterback that's going to be playing next year. And, Green Bay looks really good with Jordan Love, and Detroit's going to hang around for a while. Do you really want that job? How much of a build does this really entail? Do you want an offensive coach? Because the problems are there's a lot of defensive problems on that team too. So, I mean, from a coaching standpoint, just a complete disaster in Chicago. They should have pulled the trigger last year. I think giving him one more year was a huge mistake. I know Zach's said that too. I'm not breaking any news by saying that, but just a horrible, horrible, horrible stretch for the Bears.
It's been weird because I think I saw the last 3, maybe 4 head coaches that they fired, but for sure it was 3. They fired the year after they drafted a quarterback.
Yeah, I saw that stat. That's crazy. Yeah.
And I just don't understand why they keep letting guys who are on the hot seat stick around with the quarterback. Like, you should get your new guy in right away with the new quarterback. Because now, conceivably, I mean, I get it, right? No, everyone's going to want, or of that draft at the time, right? Caleb Williams was the pick.
Yep.
But, like, don't you want the person there picking their guy working together from the start?
Yeah, because, I mean, they could take a look at it. I mean, you never know. Some coach might come in and say, yeah, this is still our guy. We still like him, but boy, maybe it wouldn't be Romo Dunze with the 10th pick or whatever it was. They might have gone a different direction completely. They might have seen other weaknesses or said we need to address other things. They could have done other stuff. And it's just weird to put the same people in charge when they're in a tenuous situation at best. I agree with you there.
I don't understand the strategy, not just of drafting the quarterback, but drafting Romo Dunze at 10. You know that you've had offensive line problems for 5 years in Chicago. You haven't had a good offensive line. You haven't been able to run the ball well in that time, which is an indicator of a bad offensive line. You have Keenan Allen, who you just signed, and DJ Moore, who you traded for. What are you doing drafting another wide receiver in the top 10? It was a deep wide receiver class. You could have gotten a guy in the 2nd, 3rd round. You could have gotten extra picks with that 10th pick and gone and gotten an offensive lineman to help you and waited on the receiver. Romo Dunze is not good enough right now. His production is not good enough to warrant what they did to get him.
Are you coming down on Ryan Poles here?
A little bit, yeah. I just don't know. I don't know who to blame, right? The coach is going to get the blame because he was kind of a lame duck guy anyway. The GM should get some blame because I think they made a mistake taking a wide receiver after the resources they spent on wide receivers prior to the draft this year. But ownership needs to take some stock here too, because the long-term trends of the Chicago Bears has been not just mediocrity, but like bottom of the division bad. It just feels like there's no stability, there's no continuity, and despite their attempts to get that, it doesn't feel like there's much of a vision beyond we just got to get a quarterback.
I'll tell you this: the quarterback has gotten off the hook here a little bit as well.
Yeah.
I mean, he takes the sack on. I mean, I don't know. It's quarterback draw. So if you want to call it a sack or tackled for a loss, whatever, he takes that. And then they did not get a playoff. But he got tackled at like 40 seconds.
Yeah.
And he didn't snap the ball till 6.
Yep.
And he was standing behind center with everyone set with like 12 or 13 seconds to go. And he still didn't snap it until 6. Like, that's a problem on his end, too. He did not have the urgency.
Yeah.
And then he held the ball. He held the ball and patted it and pulled it down and then ripped one deep, and it took up all 6 seconds.
Yeah.
So not good.
Let me ask you this too, Zach, because you've coached in obviously a lot of football games and you've seen a lot. I just feel like it really goes back to that Hail Mary. Can one play like that be such a deflator that teams just don't recover? Or is that just is that making too much of something?
I don't know if you can call it like the only reason, but it's definitely a turning point right now.
Because everything's different. Because they're 3 seconds from winning that game, and all of a sudden Washington's at a different place. Chicago gets that win. Maybe they keep it rolling. It just feels like everything changed.
I'll say this: there definitely is in football and in locker rooms and on sidelines, there is that vibe of here we go again.
Yeah.
When things start to turn south, if you're a team that has had things go south frequently for you. And so there could be some of that. And there could be some of that in the decision making too. I mean, we talk about it we talked about it at the end of the Packers game, right? They didn't have much urgency to try to get closer. They kind of let it run down, kick a long field goal, it gets blocked, right? And the theory was, well, they didn't want a mistake, right? They didn't want to hold or a tackle for loss or something on a bad snap like the Raiders saw happen to them this week, right? They were worried about that. And it's like, well, if you're a winning team, you're probably not worried about those things, right? You're just going to go out and hand the ball off and do what you do and kick it on the next down. But in a team that's struggling, and now they're worried about these other things, which forces them into a bad decision. And then, who knows, down the road, you start second guessing yourself as well.
It's interesting too, because Thomas Brown is now the interim coach, and he failed up better than anybody I've ever seen. He was the OC for Bryce Young last year with Frank Reich. It was terrible, didn't work out. He gets the job after Shane Waldron gets fired. He gets elevated to interim OC, and now he's up to interim head coach, just like that. I mean, this is pretty impressive for him, and we'll see what he can do over the final 4 or 5 games. Last week of regular season fantasy football. Season has flown by. I'm kind of excited to get to the playoffs of this bad boy. It feels these extra weeks it's really made it longer than what I'm used to and familiar with. But we'll get more of that as we go. Other headlines: Green Bay did win their game over Miami. The only real headline off that is that if the temperature is below 35, just bet everything you got against Miami. Like, right? That seems to be the note, right, Ryan?
Oh yeah, they don't seem to be a team. Like, I had a friend that texted me this during the game that said that McDaniel looks frozen in a way that LaFleur does not.
Do you like his Gloria Vanderbilt glasses that he was wearing? I mean, those are the worst. Those are ladies' glasses. I don't care what anybody says.
I mean, I don't really care how he dresses. I'm more like. I know you do. You've made that quite clear.
No, coach has got to look like. I mean, this is bullshit. Will you dress up a little bit?
It did remind me a little bit of The Office, where Michael's wearing the woman's suit. And he's like, it is mysterious, right? They're like, no, it's made by Mysterious, and it is mysterious because the buttons are on the wrong side.
Yeah, I don't mind much what he wears or how he dresses. I just think that you want to talk about soft football teams. I think Miami's probably top of the list in the NFL.
Doesn't Costanza buy a set of women's glasses?
That's the whole bit, right? Because Kramer gives them the hookup and ends up gets the discount.
Well, I do think too, right? When they're looking cold and they fall behind and they shut down, pretty quickly. And so, that was something that we talked about, 2 years ago in the high school playoffs, right? We were big underdogs going to Lakeville North, and it was cold, right? And our kids looked cold. And part of the discussion was like, well, if we win the toss, do we take the ball or do we defer? And I said, you have to take the ball and you have to go score, because if you kick off and you give up a 15-play touchdown drive in the cold, like, game over, right?
Yeah.
Guys shut down. They're cold and they get pounded. And we did take the ball and we did go down and score. And it's like, all right, now it's game on. Like, we played a really good game. So I think that there is some mental aspect of that as well. When you're cold and you're a team that's not used to the cold or struggles in the cold, that, I mean, they were down right away, right?
Yep.
They dropped the punt, touchdown. They go 3 and out, touchdown, and it's like, the snowball just starts rolling downhill.
Yeah, Green Bay looks really good right now too. I mean, they're not a team I want to play in the playoffs, and right now they'd be a 6 seed. And if you're the 3 in the NFC right now, and you end up having to play Green Bay in round 1, I mean, I don't envy your situation. That is for sure. And right now, that would be, who would the 3 be right now? Detroit, Phillies 2. Who's 3? It's the South.
Seattle.
It's Seattle. Yeah, if you're, I mean, that's just I would put my money on Green Bay right there. Although Seattle is just the weirdest team I've ever seen play football. Like that game was so bananas. They gave up a kick return. They gave up blocked extra point. They got a pick 6 from a big fat lineman who ran it 95 yards on Aaron Rodgers back the other way. I mean, you want to talk about anything that can happen, will happen. That's Seattle in a nutshell. It's kind of a weird one.
I've heard this running joke for about 5-6 years now that the Seattle Seahawks have never played in a normal football game. It is every time the Seahawks are playing, there is something weird happening on the field. They just can't escape it. There's never a clean win or a clean loss for Seattle. It's always some wild hijinks that is going to show up on NFL films in 30 years.
I completely agree. Seattle is the kind of the weird wild card team. That's why they could win in that first playoff game against the Packers. Although I think Green Bay's playing so well, I would bet Green Bay every day. But I'm ice cold when it comes to my prize picks and stuff. So what do I know? What do you make of? I have a problem with this. So let me ask you, rules guys, this. So the hit happens on Trevor Lawrence yesterday, and it's cheap hit, dirty hit, absolutely. But he gets the 15-yard penalty and he gets ejected. But so does the guy who basically just retaliates. He gets the 15-yard penalty and they offset. Meanwhile, the starting quarterback of the Jags is out of the game. It's like, I feel like it's a good trade for the Texans. How in the world can that offset? There's got to be a way that still costs the Texans more than just that player. It's unbelievable. It's wrong to me.
It's got to be on the Jags guy not to retaliate.
Well, but if you don't retaliate, they're going to say, see, he's not protecting his quarterback. The team doesn't respect their guy.
Doesn't matter. You cannot retaliate in that situation. You're going to get the penalty. You've already got the personal foul. You don't need to take that away from your team. You got to be smarter than that.
But you would retaliate 10 out of 10 times, Ryan. You would.
Yeah, but I'm a big dumb moron, and I'm sitting here in a podcast chair. You're a professional football player. You got to go and take care of business and be professional, which means you can't go hit that guy. Take it out on him in the next play. Play dirty on the next play, but stay within the bounds of the rules within the view of the referee in a tense situation, and you don't have to worry about an offsetting penalty.
Zach, 10 out of 10 times you'd retaliate, wouldn't you?
I don't know. I mean, I think there's other ways to deal with it. And
did you see the hit? Did you see the hit?
I saw the hit.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was as bad as everyone else did.
I think it was the fact that Trevor Lawrence looked like he was dead. He had that almost that tour reaction.
That's part of it, right? That's part of why it looks worse.
Yeah.
Than I think it was, and why people reacted. I mean, it was late. I get that. But you guys, like, when quarterbacks are running and sliding and people are running at full speed, like, and here's the problem. We've reduced the target zone on these guys so much. Like, you can't go high, right? You can't take out his knee. You got to do that. Like, so it makes it hard, and I don't feel like there was ill intent there. So I don't know. It's hard. Like, and I think some of the pushing and shoving that happens afterwards, it's a lot of fake tough guy stuff.
Yeah, I do agree with that. There is some of that to be said. Meanwhile, the Texans, they should have ran away from that game, and they didn't. They were in a fight till the end with Jacksonville. That Houston team's not good. I would, again, you want to talk about loving to be a wild card team and playing them? Like, wouldn't you love to play Houston right now in a playoff game? I certainly would. Speaking of CJ Stroud, Ryan, is it? Zach's already nodding. He's already shaking his head no.
I
But
said no CJ Stroud discussion. I don't want to hear it.
Oh, that's right. No CJ. I'm sorry. Fine. I'll just make a declaration. I'll make it. I just wondered like this. Is it closer than like last year? It was a rout. They said, oh, CJ Stroud far and away the better pick over Bryce Young. 10 out of 10 versus a 1 out of 10. It's not close. It's Ryan Leaf, Peyton Manning. Are we at least interested? Is the door ajar a little, though, to make it seem like maybe Stroud is still the better player? But it's closer than it was a year ago, and maybe Carolina didn't get this so wrong. And where do you think here, Ryan?
I still think that Stroud's the better quarterback. It's a sophomore slump, but he's the better quarterback right now. I don't know if the door's ever going to be open enough, or if Young is going to be he's going to be good enough to step through the door. I don't see it. I still go Stroud on that.
I think Bryce Young's played well for a month.
Hey, I'm not saying he hasn't. I'm not saying he hasn't.
I don't know if he's played well for a month, but he's playing better.
Yeah, like I thought he played well yesterday. I thought he played a good game.
He's playing better, but he still has a long ways to go to prove it. I think, other than a 4-game stretch.
That's true.
It's got to start somewhere, and I think that he's done a good job this year. I still think though that I don't think CJ Stroud's the reason they're losing these games.
Well, he's not helping though. He's throwing a lot of picks and he's making mistakes.
I mean, yeah, but again, that's sophomore slump.
Yep.
You're allowed to have a couple of bad games, but he's played some good games too. I'm not going to sit here and say he's been lights out, but I still think he's better than Bryce Young.
I bet you would have liked to add CJ Stroud on Saturday, wouldn't you have? I'm not saying it. No, sorry, I didn't mean to.
I'll tell you this: we could have had prime Peyton Manning back there, and it wouldn't have fucking mattered because we were running the ball right up the goddamn middle, right into you have outmatched them in every other fucking position on the field. And you decide, hey, it's a great idea. Let's run behind our biggest weakness into their greatest strength and win that way on some goddamn fucking ego trip because Ryan Day can't handle the criticism that he might not be the toughest coach in the world. Just go win the fucking football game. How about that? How about that's the thing that matters? I don't care how you do it. Just go win the fucking game. Throw the fucking ball.
Ladies and gentlemen, totally knew that was coming.
Rating.
Yep, had that stick of dynamite, and I lit the fuse. It was my fault, Ryan. I'm so sorry.
It just blows my mind how you can coach so fucking cowardly for 60 minutes in the biggest game of the fucking year. You can go out there and try to blow the doors off of Indiana and put out the cigarettes because it's Indiana and you expect to beat them, but you're scared for your fucking job when you want to coach against Michigan, despite the fact that you vastly outclassed them on a talent spectrum this year. And you had the opportunity to go out there and hang 50 on them, and you decide to go with the game plan that gives them the best chance to win. Double tap that douchebag in the back of the fucking head at midfield.
We don't endorse. We're not going to endorse murder
bullshit.
Here on this podcast.
This is bullshit. He shouldn't have a job. I'm sick of him being my fucking coach of my favorite fucking team. I'm tired of watching them lose every fucking year to Michigan. I'm sick of it. Get rid of this fucking clown. And he sits there in the fight at the end of the game, just spacing out like he's on fucking Quaaludes. As though sorry.
Jameis Winston just threw a pick six.
And Caitlin, close circuit to Caitlin, we're sorry for all the curse words here in the last minute and a half, 90
Let's
seconds.
Let's be honest. Caitlin just skips to dad talk.
She does skip.
Ryan,
I didn't mean to do that. I'm sorry, Ryan.
Sorry. But speaking of the dad talk stuff.
Yep.
And the Ohio State game. So I was putting Huck to bed Saturday night, right? And Huck is 4.5. So he looked at me. And he asked me, he said, Dad, will Ryan issue an apology in the apology segment this week? Because he said, I have never woken up in a world where Ohio State has beaten Michigan. And he said, Ryan convinced me this year. I bet my milk money on the Buckeyes was some guy on the school bus. 1,830 days and counting.
Ryan Day so fucking gone. I simply will not be happy until that day comes. I don't care if we win a national title this year. This is a
well, let's be
failure.
clear. You're not winning a national title this year.
I don't care if we win a national title this year. It is a failure of a season. You had one fucking job and you pissed down your leg trying to prove a point that doesn't matter in a game that does.
Well, I think that would be interesting, right? I mean, if they did win the whole thing now,
yeah,
like it still feels really empty, doesn't it?
You can't treat it like that. If you win the national title, all's got to be forgiven.
Nothing. Michigan doesn't. Michigan is the only game that matters, Tim. I don't care.
Then what are we doing here if the national title game doesn't matter?
The national title is the thing that you go prove why you're better than other conferences. I don't give a shit about that if you don't beat Michigan, because all the Michigan fans are just going to say, oh, we won 2 in a row because we beat you this year. I don't give a shit. You have to beat those clowns. All right? You have to beat them. It is your one job. John Cooper was a good coach at Ohio State. He won a lot of games. They won a lot of top 10 matchups, but he couldn't fucking beat Michigan, and he got fired anyway. Get rid of Ryan Day. I'm so sick of him. I'm sick of his smug third base born ass. I'm tired of it. He's got nothing. He's never built a program. Bring me somebody who knows what the fuck he's doing and how to build something worth a damn, because clearly we have a team full of mental midgets who have NFL talent who aren't doing the job or handling the game correctly because they're being led by the worst bearded, most punchable face I've ever seen in my life. I hate this man. I want him gone. I never want to hear his name again.
All right, that's enough college football.
I gotta time that one out. That Ryan, right. All right, Ty, you got what you wanted right there. Closer to Ty. Ty was looking forward to Ryan's response.
My heart is pounding right now. I'm so mad.
Let me get this back on track. All right. Back to the NFL real quick. I don't know where to go from there. That was wild. Yeah, there you go. Get a hit of that e-cig, and now you feel better. Zach, anything else we need to get to of note here from this week that I think is worth talking about? Obviously, we're in the Eliminator meat grinder right now. The Lions keep winning. The Vikings keep winning somehow. That was kind of a miracle game. But like, if you had to pick if there was, out of all these teams that have winning records, 9-3, 10-2, 8-4, whatever, who are the teams that you're like, you know what? We're not going to eliminate them in the Eliminator, but cross them off. They're not winning the Super Bowl.
Well, I think you can cross the Vikings off. And that'll get me some hate mail probably from Ty.
Shocked that's your answer.
Well, come on. What I said it during the game with the Cardinals, right? Who also lead their division. You can put them on this list too.
Yeah.
Right? What in that game that you watched was like, yep, this is a team that's going to win playoff games?
Because we said that about, I brought this up too, not just because of the Vikings, but the Ravens too, right? Ravens sitting at 8-5. You kind of made the decree in the text, like, hey, I get that they're 8-5 and they have a lot of talent, but we're not talking about them as Super Bowl contenders anymore.
Everyone keep right. I mean, how many times last night did they say greatest offense ever? They're comparing them to the greatest show on turf with the Rams. And it's like, they're 8-5. They're constantly turning the ball over or jumping off sides or getting called for a hold. Like, I'm sorry, but at some point, like, winners win and losers lose. And they ain't winning. Right? They've lost a lot of games. And so I can't do it anymore with them. Like, if you want to talk about them being a serious contender, we'll talk about them again after they win in the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah.
Until then, like, I just can't do it with them.
Dismiss that convo. And you're in the same boat with Minnesota then, it sounds like.
I think Minnesota, I'm not in the same way as them, right? Because Minnesota at least is winning games.
Yes.
Right? And this is a different gripe than what's going on with Baltimore. Like, I just look at Minnesota right now and I go, like, it feels a lot. I think you said it. It feels a lot like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Right?
Were they winning all the one-score coin flip games? They win all the 50-50 games.
And there's something to be said about that with their coaching staff and the way they're playing games, the way they're preparing on stuff.
Yeah.
But I also watched some things and I was like, Did they even target Jefferson in the first half?
Ryan, that would be for you.
Once.
Did they? Yeah, once.
And like, that's a problem. And I'm not saying you have to bring back the Randy ratio with Coach Tice, but like, I think, like, you need to find ways to get him the ball more.
Yeah.
Right? There's those plays that are like, there's not a whole lot of reading going on. Like, your best guy is going to touch the ball.
It's a lot like what San Francisco does when they're at their peak with Debo, right? Where they get him running on some jet sweeps. They just find a way to pitch him the ball on little stuff like that, just so that he has a chance to see it.
To hand the ball off to Justin Jefferson. That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah, but you're saying, but be creative, right? Come up with stuff.
There are things that you can scheme that you can get him easy touches.
He did get way more involved in the second half of that game.
He did, but it shouldn't take 3. What was it? 6 at half before you go. Oh shit, we should throw him the ball.
The point that I'm making though is that the change that they made was that they started lining him up in different spots. Like they brought him into the backfield a couple of times. Yep. They moved him to the slot.
Exactly.
The hard part is that I think my big gripe about the game this week was, especially in the first half, they didn't do it as much in the second half. You were getting a lot of pressure from Arizona. And instead of adjusting and trying and doing more of these kind of short nickel and dime routes just to get the ball out and get into the guy's hands, they're doing these kind of long developing crossing plays on play action. They're trying to get Jefferson to draw the safety out, to clear out for Hawkinson or Addison, which works well and good. But when Arizona's bringing some pressures that you weren't prepared for, now you have to change your plan. And they did that well in the second half, but they spent a lot of time in the first half.
You're good.
They spent a lot of time in the first half kind of chasing these big plays that just weren't there. And it ended up with some bad sacks. It ended up with, I think, at least one turnover. That was maybe I'm thinking of something else, but I know that they had the one turnover with Jones. That's not what I'm talking about. But there was a couple of bad drives that if you just throw the ball and get it into guys' hands, throw the wide receiver screens, throw the tunnel screens, throw the slant routes, the curl routes, like you did in the second half, those opportunities are there for you to move the ball, and they kind of need that kind of get the timing going to set up the longer plays. And I think that's the thing that you saw in the second half there is that's how they did it and set up those plays in the fourth quarter.
And there was talk, I want to say, I don't know, 2-3 weeks ago, I think it was a night game, where, they were like, Justin Jefferson talked to KOC and was like, well, how's Cooper Kupp always open? And he was like, Cooper Kupp lines up all over the field in different spots. But yet we don't seem to see that all the time. And, I don't know if it's a reluctance from Jefferson to do it. I don't know if it's a reluctance for Vikings to pull it out. Who knows? Maybe they feel like they can save it, right?
Yeah.
Maybe they're so confident in what they're doing right now. They're like, well, if we get in a tight one, then we'll start moving it to that direction. I don't know. It feels like something's missing.
It feels very vanilla. The offense does. It just feels like they're kind of, I don't know, they're not putting it into high gear until they absolutely have to. And then everything just seems to work. And I don't know why that is or how that ends up happening in the NFL. Like college, I can kind of see that, right? Where you're a really good team. You've just kind of been hanging back for 3 quarters and you say, all right, well now it's time to put this game away. Plenty of teams do that. That doesn't happen in the NFL. It shouldn't happen in the NFL. Kansas City's the only team that's allowed to do that.
Which, by the way, all they do is win.
That's all they do.
They do.
That is true.
And I don't want to make this. I don't want to make this Vikings fan line, but I think that we're seeing the lack of production from a fan perspective and the statistical perspective, which is absolutely true, right? You can't deny the statistics of it. However, I really do think that there's some weird coverage thing going on there where they're paying a lot of attention to Justin Jefferson. And, when he's who you're looking at, it can be difficult to check into a different person. Now, you're a professional quarterback. Darnold should be able to do that, but it is Sam Darnold. And I'm going to accept that he has some limitations. He's not a perfect quarterback.
Yeah.
But, that can be a difficult challenge for a quarterback to overcome.
But they get their chance to get it back this week because it's Cousins Bowl. The question is, this might be Kirk Cousins' last stand. Like, what if he gets benched in the middle of a game against the Vikings? I mean, this would be incredible.
I'm telling you, I'm a little worried for Cousins with the amount of pressure that Minnesota can get. Kyler Murray was able to escape that because he's fast and he's probably the most mobile quarterback that Minnesota is going to see this year, with Philadelphia not being on the schedule, and Richardson was benched the game that we played him. But quarterbacks that tend to stand still against Minnesota have not done well. Like you saw that with C.J. Stroud, who I think was probably the best prospect quarterback that we saw earlier in the year. You saw it with Brock Purdy. Guys that tend to be pocket passers don't play well against Minnesota because they see a ton of pressure. And I worry that Cousins is going to get rocked a couple of times.
What do you make of Zach on the Cousins thing? What do you make of the fact I read the stat that he is throwing the slowest ball in the league right now at about 36 miles an hour? That is it hesitancy? I mean, it feels like maybe he's not real comfortable with, I don't know if he trusts himself or he trusts his stuff or his health, but like they were saying, like his ball was coming out about 36 miles an hour, which, I don't know how they measure that in a game, but they're looking at his passes and saying, yeah, everybody else is throwing with a lot more zip and his stuff just doesn't have it.
Much like in Baltimore with the kicker, Father Time is undefeated.
And 35-year-old quarterbacks with Achilles tendon issues, as we're seeing in New York as well, just those guys just don't bounce back as quickly as, or they can't, or even bounce back at all when that happens.
Well, it was his back foot, right? Like that's where your throwing motion starts. That's where you generate all your power, is pushing off that back foot. And if he doesn't have the strength in his leg anymore to drive off that back foot, I mean, how are you going to put any zip on your throws? I don't care how accurate you are.
He was doing it with guile early in the season, but now that it's getting colder and things are starting to get, everybody's a little banged up and it's nut cutting time. He doesn't
We're 13 weeks in, man. Your body wears and tears in the NFL worse than any other sport. Man, he could, we could be talking about him being sore or starting to feel that a little bit for sure, but it's week 13 and he's coming off an Achilles injury. He's probably not 100%.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I agree. I think that those things just add up and like it's cumulative, like things pile up over a season. And then, right, at some point you play a Thursday night game after only getting 2 days off, and right, that's like another thing. And so I think that it's all adding up. And he wasn't 100% to start with. And I don't know. I mean, if you're Atlanta, like I don't think you can make the switch.
Yeah, you almost kind of, you're in bed here for the rest of the year, right? With Cousins, don't you think?
And unless they fall out of first. Right? And right now they're tied with Tampa and they have the tiebreaker. Right? So if Tampa were to pull ahead of them, then I think they can maybe make the move. But if they have the lead, it's hard to justify making the switch to the rookie in the middle of the year.
It's true.
And even though it might be the right move, it could be the right move. Let's be clear about that. But it takes a lot of if you make that decision and you're wrong, A, it's really hard to go back.
It's true.
And B, it's hard to look in that locker room and be like, well, we were in first, and then I made a quarterback switch, and now we're not. You
got to be almost like Tomlin, where you read the room and you do it early, like he did when he went to Russell versus Fields. Like he went with he kind of sensed it, and he ended up kind of being right, going with Russ versus Justin Fields. I mean, I think they would still have a good record with Fields, but clearly Russ gives them something different, and he sensed that. But that's what you see in practices.
Right, they were going to the number one.
Yeah.
Right? Like, he was the number one going in, but he was hurt.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a difference there between going to that and going to the unknown quantity of your rookie quarterback.
Yeah, even if he is 30 years old. Or even if he did play college for 8 years or whatever. He was in college forever. I don't know.
I think also, though, there is a pressure to feeling Tampa breathing down your neck a little bit.
Yeah.
Where you thought that maybe they would fall off with the injuries to their defense and the injury to Godwin. You kind of thought that maybe they would drop off a little more than they have. And they just haven't. They've clearly taken a small step back offensively, but the defense is starting to figure some things out, and
Baker's just willing them.
And that schedule is not super difficult.
No, it's not. I mean, you just played Carolina. I mean, you beat them by 3 points, but that was probably Carolina's best game of the year that they've played.
Yeah.
I mean, and you took their best shot and you still won.
I think you also have to look there and go, hey, Tampa Bay has beaten the Lions and beaten the Eagles.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, those are the top 2 seeds in the conference. They've also beaten the Commanders, who are probably going to be a playoff team in the NFC. Like, all the NFC playoff teams that they have faced, they have beaten.
True. It's true. I mean, the injuries just absolutely ravaged them. But I think, they're in it because, Baker has willed them to some wins, and they've hung in there. And there's games they could have won. There's some games they've lost on field goals and missed field goals and things like that. So good on them. Other injuries, we'll get to the Eliminator, but no surprise. It basically looks like McCaffrey's done for the year. He's got a PCL injury. He's finished. I don't know. It felt like that was just doomed from the start. And now both him and the backup are on the shelf for basically the rest of the year. It really is just the season from hell for San Francisco. It's been a terrible year. Nothing's gone right. Everybody's gotten hurt. It's just been a disaster.
Are the Niners done? Like, is their window shut?
They got a lot of decisions to make. On guys like Purdy, and you have given McCaffrey a lot of money. Maybe there's a way out at some point because you might be seeing him turning the corner to the other side of that number for running backs. I don't know if he's got. I just don't know if he's ever going to be the player he was. Hard to say at this point. You might have seen their best shot. The Ayuk stuff, it just never got off to a good start this year. It never got on track. It was a total bungling the entire way. It just never got off the ground, and everybody and their mom got hurt. Hate to see it. Let's talk Eliminator, because we got a decision to make tonight. As you know, on this podcast, we eliminate one team every week for elimination. So far this season, we have eliminated the Giants, the Broncos, which again, go Browns, Giants, Broncos, Jaguars, Titans, Panthers, Patriots, Browns, Saints, Raiders, the Jets, the Jets and the Bears. So that's what we've eliminated so far. And Dallas, right?
Yep.
And Dallas as well. So those teams have all been eliminated. I guess my nominee is the Cincinnati Bengals. I don't know if there's a worse defense outside of the Waswa Sirwanga, Foge Fazio Minnesota Vikings defense of like 2001. I don't know if there's a defense I've ever seen worse than that. This Bengals defense is just atrocious. It's the worst defense I've ever seen. So my nominee is Cincinnati.
It's pretty bad. Joe Burrow's playing out of his mind, MVP caliber football, and they can't win a game. I mean,
they let Russ Wilson throw for 415 yesterday.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's inexcusable.
And Russ is playing well, let's be clear, but not 415 yards. Come on now.
I think I'm going to nominate a team. I'm going to nominate the Niners. I mean, it's curtains, right? I mean, 2 25-plus point losses in a row. You lose your best player. The defense looks like it's reeling. There's just no there right now, and I think it's really tough to justify, even in a tight division, keeping them in the conversation.
So we've got the Bengals and the Niners. So I will put you can either nominate a third team, Zach, or you can be the tiebreaker this evening.
Those are two teams that I really agree with. Those were the two at the top of my list. So I'm not going to nominate another team. I think as frustrating. Here's the hard thing: like that NFC West, they're still so crowded together.
Yeah,
and even as bad as it's been, it's like, well, San Francisco is technically only 2 games back, and it's not like we sit here and think the other 3 teams are world beaters.
right.
Now, if they come out next week and lose to the Bears, I think then there's no more discussion. But they still have a game with the Rams. They still have a game with the Cardinals, which are division games. So I'm leaning for the Bengals right now. The reality is they're not going to win the division, right? That ship has sailed. And I just don't think they can get to Denver either. I mean, and if they do get to Denver, they're still going to have to deal with all the other teams in the middle.
Yep.
Right? Which is the Colts and the Dolphins. And even though, right, those teams are not great right now, right? And we've eliminated Miami.
We have not eliminated Miami.
So. Okay,
not eliminated
not.
Miami.
So that still gives us another team in there too as protection, along with the Colts. So I'm going to go with Cincinnati.
Cincinnati is the team eliminated. Ryan, you good?
Yeah, for sure. I think, again, I don't disagree with Cincinnati at all. I just think that, we probably had to talk about the Niners at least.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm just, Cincinnati feels like a team that, you kind of also wonder if their window is closed before it was open. Like, you have so many pieces you have to fix on defense.
But they have at least the tools offensively. I mean, as long as you pay Chase and you have Burrow, you're gonna get it. You have a chance. You gotta figure it out on defense, though. Yeah, it's the worst defense I've ever seen. It's terrible.
I think that we could finally see a coaching move there too.
Yeah, I think that's out there. I think, there's going to be some coaches that are good coaches, like Mike Vrabel last year for Tennessee, where like a good coach is going to get fired. Like, somebody's going to take a fall in some spots. That's just going to happen.
Let me say this, because I would have said it could be a good discussion, a good role play for next week, but I will be limited next week from Vegas. So, Ryan, if you were Ben Johnson, would you rather have the Cincinnati job or the Bears job?
I'd rather have Cincinnati 100%.
Right. And so I think that becomes some of the problem with the Bears. Like, all of a sudden, if some of these other jobs open up, like, I don't know where they fall on the pecking order.
And the Bears say they want a leader of men, which tells me they want to stay with defense, or it tells me they just want a guy who commands locker rooms. So it's like, it makes me feel like a Mike Vrabel would be a guy they would go call. And I hear rumors about Cliff Kingsbury, but that would be just totally a Bears move. That would be just, as a Vikings fan, I'm rooting for them to hire Cliff Kingsbury. That would be hot.
Here's the real Bears move that got floated this week. Notre Dame head coach Marcus Freeman.
I've heard about Marcus Freeman has been rumored, which is just, again.
I can't see him doing that.
Yeah, I mean, if you love it.
Absolutely.
You can, really? You don't think he likes the situation at Notre Dame?
I think any coach who is in college right now who has an opportunity to go make more money without the grind of recruiting, I absolutely think they'd take it. But I don't know if he'll get offered the job over somebody else like Liam Cohen, the offensive coordinator in Tampa.
That's a nothing. He's only been the OC there a year. I'm not ready to give him the job.
I'm not either. I'm just saying that I think that they would go with someone who's more of a proven NFL guy than a college guy. Now, look, Ryan Day could be looking for a job. Maybe they should call him.
Won't Ohio State call Marcus Freeman? Right, he's an alumni.
Yeah, they probably honestly, if they have an opening, he's probably on their list. I wouldn't be surprised by that. I think you would have to call Mike Vrabel and hear him say no, but that's another name that the Bears might call too.
Yeah, Vrabel makes a lot of sense to me there. I feel like
I don't think Vrabel wants to do that.
You don't think he wants to go to Chicago?
No, to Ohio State.
No, I don't think
he'd want to do college.
I'm not saying he would. I said you have to call him and hear him say no before you offer it to anybody else.
That's fair. I just think, I don't know, how much more money do you think the Bears are going to offer him than what he's getting at Notre Dame?
I don't think it's so much about the money being so much more. I think it's about the grind being less. That you don't have to do it and recruit and deal with NIL and be in the transfer portal and be dealing with bonehead 19-year-olds. You can go deal with professionals, and you can go through a normal signing process and have a much less rigorous schedule than you do in college football. And
but don't you think? I mean, he's making almost $7 million a year, according to what I just pulled up, with his bonuses and stuff. He's gonna walk into the playoff. I mean, what? 8 out of 10 years, probably.
Sure. Yeah. It's a high-profile gig.
It's a high-profile gig, and he's going to get a lot of money. And I mean, there's not many jobs that like. How much money would Ohio State have to offer him to get him to leave?
They'd have to give him $10 million a year.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know what that number is.
But even then, Tim, don't you think he could turn around and go, "Hey, like Ohio State's offering me 10. If you give me 8, I'd rather stay here at Notre Dame."
Yeah. So I don't have to move. I don't have any boxes to pack.
It's a different pressure, right? I mean, you've talked about it, Ryan. Like, there's the pressure of it. You have to beat Michigan, right? You got to win the whole thing. If he's in the playoff every year at Notre Dame, but they're just not winning the whole thing, I don't think anyone's going to freak out and try to push him out.
Same thing like they have those rivalries like USC. I don't think anybody would call for Marcus Freeman's head if USC beat them like 2-3 years in a row. Versus on the other side where Ohio State could lose to Michigan 3 years in a row and it becomes a
4. I don't think they're gonna. USC's gonna beat Notre Dame 3 times in a row anytime soon.
Yeah, you might be right. I'm just making the point of like that's your biggest rival, and yet if they beat you a few times, I don't think the Notre Dame fans are going to run you out of town.
Yeah,
like that's just my. It's a different animal entirely. I think.
I am saying though, I think it's a better shot that he ends up in Chicago than it is he ends up in Columbus.
Yeah.
I do feel that Ohio State's going to be looking for a new coach at the end of the year.
I think Vrabel makes a ton of sense for Chicago if that happens.
Yeah.
But we can look at that again in another week.
He's a leader of men type, right?
Yes,
that makes a lot of sense.
That's what they want. Yeah. They want like that John Harbaugh type, that leader of men who could hire good coaches around him and command a locker room.
My other thought is if they go with an offensive guy, there's plenty of retread guys out there who have gotten raw deals. I think one of them that may end up being fired is coaching tonight.
In Stefanski?
I think Stefanski would be a great coach in Chicago. And I don't say that as a Vikings fan who wants them to fail. I just think that if you give him a better shot with a better offense in an organization that has built a better, built some talent as opposed to trading everything for a guy who took 2 years off, I'd be a little scared to see Kevin Stefanski coach Caleb Williams. I won't lie to you.
I'll say this. I don't think he's a bad coach at all.
No,
I think Kevin Stefanski, if he got fired, would find a job. Maybe not right away the first year because he might say, "I'll wait a year."
Yep.
To have my pick or whatever, but
and he gets to sit on some money. Like it's easy to just sit on a pile of cash and stay home for a while.
Right. Getting back to the cash thing, with this Marcus Freeman thing, like he's making more than Eberflus is making.
Yeah.
So I get it. You can talk about the grind and stuff, but I don't know.
And the Bears don't always hire high profile like dudes. They always go out and get idiots. Yeah. All right. So we'll keep an eye on that. The only apology we'll make tonight is to our listeners for Ryan's profanity laced tirade. Short of that, nothing to apologize for unless you have something, Zach.
I'm good.
I'd do it again.
He apologizes for nothing. Let's go to the power rankings then so we can get to dad talk. Every week on this show, of course, us three, we all rank our top 5 teams in the league. And we go from 5 to 1. We will start at number 5. Ryan, who do you have?
Mine's still loading up. Pull up. Go to Zach.
All right.
Quick.
I'll take mine first. I'll do that. I'll take Pittsburgh at 5. I think I'm starting to think now about teams that I think can win the Super Bowl. I think Pittsburgh's defense can win the Super Bowl, and they have enough talent around, and the coach is good. I have them at 5. Zach?
All right, I'm going to go back to a team that I had at 5 a week or two ago. I'm going to go with the Chargers. I think I bumped them out after their loss to Baltimore, but their defense continues to play really well.
Yep.
And if they end up in that 5 slot where they are now, like you talked about it earlier, Tim, like, are they worried about going to Houston?
No, I think they would love that. I think they'd love that matchup.
if they ended up in a cold weather game with Buffalo or the Chiefs in the second round, or even Pittsburgh, right? Because those are all probably going to be cold weather games. Like, I think their run game travels, their defense travels.
And their coach isn't rattled by that. Their coach is coached in big games all the time. Like, that guy just lives for that stuff.
I mean, he's won his rivalry game 3 years in a row.
Jesus Christ.
So I'll go with Chargers 5.
Chargers 5. Rhino?
My number 5 team remains the same from last week. It's the Philadelphia Eagles.
Philly is 5. That was a big win on the road against Baltimore for them. They're red hot, but they are 5. Ryan, they're my 4, but I'll let you take us back with your 4th. So Philly's 5. Sure. Go ahead for your 4.
My number 4 also remains the same. It's the Minnesota Vikings. I keep winning games. That's what it's asked of you, and it's. I think that there's a lot there that is better metrically than 2022. I look at their point differential is obviously well more sustainable than it was in 2022. They're not getting blown out after winning tight games. It's a good team. Their defense is much better than it was in 2022. I don't think that you would see Daniel Jones drive down the field on them in the playoffs like you did in 22.
Yeah, he might be driving us down the field.
Yeah, might be. But Darnold's playing lights out. I mean, he looks really good in the second half of every single game. He's been nails in every clutch situation. So I'm going to go with the Vikings at 4.
Vikings at 4. Zach?
I'm moving Philly to 4.
I have Philly at 4 as well.
They looked the part in their game this week, but I think, sorry, I'm losing my momentum here with my voice.
You're hanging in there. You're doing great.
I've got Buffalo ahead of them after last night in the weather.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's fair. Philly at 4. Philly's at 4 for me. I'll take 3. Go ahead, Ryan. You got something?
I was just going to say, I think in Philly, I think that they have the only challenger to Josh Allen in my mind for MVP. Saquon Barkley is playing like
but I feel like they'd be a playoff team without Saquon Barkley. The Bills would be a 4-win outfit if they didn't have Josh Allen. That's what it feels like. It's a very
that's true.
Thing.
But Philly's a Super Bowl contender because of Saquon Barkley. They can beat anybody.
Yeah, that's fair. I can listen to that comment. I think that's good. I got Buffalo at 3. Coming back around. I like Buffalo a lot. I think they have a really good chance to win the whole thing. I just can't put them above the top 2 teams, so I have them at 3. But Josh Allen's the MVP, I think, right now in the league. Zach, coming back.
I've got the Lions at 3. They squeaked out a win against the Bears, while at home on a short week, while the Bills looked pretty dominant last night in all phases.
They did.
And so that gives them the nod there. I also, I think if you ask me right now who has a better chance to win it all, Buffalo or Detroit, I would go with Buffalo slightly.
I think it's close. Yeah, I think it's really close. I agree. I just have Detroit ahead of them for right now, but I definitely think Buffalo was impressive last night. I think it's still, I don't know, maybe I just don't love McDermott yet. I'm still struggling. Although McDermott's got quite the coaching record. At some point, I got to give him credit. We'll see. Ryan, who's your 3?
My 3 is also Detroit for similar reasons, but also we are approaching an event horizon with their defensive injuries.
They had a lot of injuries in that game. Holy cow.
There is you only have so much talent at some point, and you're starting to see some position groups get horribly thin. I think about their defensive line is incredibly thin. You're getting thin at cornerback. I wouldn't be surprised to see them sign somebody on the D-line.
They signed Jamal Adams. They did sign Jamal Adams. I saw that.
It's a good safety pickup. You can roll Brian Branch down to play nickel corner if he's healthy. I mean, he was hurt too, right? I mean, he was off the field for a while. He came back, but he's a guy that's played both positions, so you've got some flexibility there if Adams is going to suit up for you this week. So I'm concerned with the injuries for Detroit. Chicago made that a game because of the injuries. You were missing a lot of guys, and they pulled close at the end there because of the amount of guys that got hurt for Detroit. So I'm a little concerned to see where that goes.
I think that's a fair point.
One thing I thought was weird last night, there were multiple talking heads at halftime and pregame Sunday night and all that stuff that said Detroit is the toughest place to play in the NFL right now.
When did that happen?
Yeah, that is not true, right, Ryan? I mean,
I watched a Buffalo game last night that took the complete sales out of San Francisco, who's supposed to be a physical football team. I mean,
I just look at it and go, I think that obviously if that Detroit game, let's say Detroit and Philadelphia play in the NFC title game, home field advantage there is big.
Yeah,
right?
I don't trust Detroit in an outdoor game.
But right, so that's what I'm saying. Like, and hey, they looked good at Lambeau in that game in the cold and stuff. But do you think Philadelphia would have a bigger home field advantage in that game or Detroit?
I think Philadelphia. I mean, when did they play Green Bay? When was that game?
Detroit.
That was the first game, right? Or no, the Green Bay and Philly.
When Detroit went to Green Bay. When was that?
Detroit went to Green Bay like
3 weeks ago.
6
week
or
9.
7.
Week 9.
Oh, week 9.
Yeah, it was cold,
but it's not January in
it was
Green
raining.
Bay or Philadelphia cold. I mean, it's I don't know.
Shitty rain weather, right?
Yeah, Aaron Glenn couldn't see out of his glasses. I think that was the shot that I remember from the game.
So
I just don't trust when the temperature gets below 35 degrees. Do you trust Detroit to be a team that's going to play their best football?
Yeah.
And they play 14 out of their 17 games in dome stadiums.
Yeah, it's true.
I just don't know that I trust a team that does that any more than I trust Miami.
They have to have the number 1 seed all the way through in the NFC.
Have to.
Right? They have to. 100%.
Especially if you're going to sustain this level of injury, right? You need that advantage and the lack of travel to make up for the fact that you're leaking oil on defense.
Yep.
And the defense was already kind of the weakness of that team, right? Offense, we didn't have offensive questions about Detroit. We had defensive questions about Detroit. And if teams can start to keep pace with them, any mistake they make offensively is going to be magnified.
So they are my 2. And you have them at 3. So Ryan, you have Buffalo at 2, or who do you have at 2?
I have Kansas City at 2.
Kansas City at 2.
I have Buffalo at 2.
You have Buffalo at 2. I have Detroit at 2.
Good win by Kansas City. Way to pull that out. You gutted it. You got a little lucky. Whether or not there was a whistle, I doubt we'll ever know. I doubt Raiders fans will ever admit it.
They are they are living a charmed life right now. If you are a Chief, like if you're a Kansas City Chief, you need to be buying lottery tickets because you're living a clean life right now.
This is where the Minnesota as fraud thing bugs me a little bit. Is I think that some of these wins are a little more legitimate than some of the wins that Kansas City has put up.
But they have the track record and they have.
I was just about to say. However, yeah. I get the track record side of it.
Yeah.
But if you put the two together and you took the team names off of it, I think you would probably bet that Minnesota had a better record than Kansas City. Either way, Buffalo's my number 1.
So Buffalo's your 1, Kansas City's your 2. I'm assuming that's flipped for you then, Zach?
Yeah, I have Kansas City at 1.
Yeah, I have Kansas City at 1 as well. Just because, Ryan, you and I talked about this a little bit today, that we have a lot of, dogs in the league, right? A lot of good players, a lot of scrappy, tough players. We have one killer, and it's Patrick Mahomes. Like, I just feel like in a big spot, I'm going to bet on Mahomes 10 times out of 10.
He's the Grim Reaper.
And I'm going to lose I'm going to lose once or twice, but I'm going to win a hell of a lot more than I'm going to lose because he just knows how to close games. He knows how to finish.
It's like those years that Brady was in New England from 2011 to the end of his time there, right? It was, if Brady's on your schedule in December or January, your season's over. I think about this all the time that, he faced Patrick Mahomes is one of them, right? And he ended up becoming a killer again. But
yep.
He kind of looked at 2 different ascendant dynasties, beat them in the Super Bowl, and they never really got back to that level.
Yeah.
Kansas City's kind of the exception to that. They kind of built back to that. but the early part of Mahomes' career looked like he was going to be on pace to beat Brady's record for Super Bowls. And he still might, but the trajectory looks different because Brady is the ultimate killer. And that's kind of what Mahomes has become, is if he shows up on your schedule in December or January, you just expect to lose.
Yeah, especially if he's at home. And he's going to be at home again. He's going to have home field pretty much throughout.
I think we're going to learn. We'll learn exactly what they are down the stretch. They're home to the Chargers.
Yep.
They're at the Browns. They're home to the Texans. And they're at the Steelers and the Broncos.
Yeah.
That's 1, 2, 3, 4 out of 5 games are playoff teams.
Yeah, it's going to be a good stiff. Yeah. If they go 4-1 in that stretch, I would say that's pretty damn legit. And book them. You know, they're going to be there at the end. Even if they go 3-2.
Although if they go 4-1 in that stretch, they may not have home field advantage because I think Buffalo could win out.
It's true. I mean, that division's pretty weak sauce, and they know they have a couple division games left. They still got to see.
They go at the Rams, at the Lions, home for the Patriots and Jets, at the Patriots.
So they have 2 tough ones here coming up, but then they got 3 pretty gettable ones to finish the season. Yeah. Soft landing at the end.
I think the Rams are a win for them. Detroit's the test. If you can beat Detroit, I think you've got to be the Super Bowl favorite.
Well, we're going to keep an eye on that. It's going to be great.
Detroit, the toughest place to play.
The toughest place to play.
I guess we'll find out.
You know, Buffalo's got to win in Detroit after one of those nor'easters moved them to Detroit. They went out and won a game there, so they're not afraid to go play there. Are you kidding me? I love also, just before we go to Dad Talk, I love the fact that Buffalo's going to keep their stadium open air. They're going to protect the fans, but it's going to be open at the top. So I think they love these snow elements. They want that advantage. They don't need to play in a dome. I kind of respect it. Although I wouldn't want to go to a game there after 2 feet of snow. Although it looked like a hell of a good time. Let's do Dad Talk. Dad Talk at the end of the pod. I'm not a dad, but I moderate. Let's send it to our dads. It was a Thanksgiving weekend, guys. You had an extended time at home. How did it go?
Well, before Ryan gets to his big story, I'll give a quick one, and then we can do yours, and then we can come back to some of our stuff, because a lot of mine happened after Thanksgiving. But we sat down Thanksgiving Day. I turned on the TV, and of course there's a fight over who gets to pick, and I said, no, Dad's picking football. The Lions are playing the Bears. And Garrett looks at me and says, I hate the Bears. And at that point, I realized, all right, we're doing something right here.
Yes, good parenting is happening in this house. You're raising a good boy there. That's awesome. By the way, update in the game, it's 21-17 Broncos, just for the record. Come on, Browns. Figure it out. Ryan, Dad Talk story. What do you got?
I've been advised by my legal counsel, i.e. my wife, to not name any names, because there are people who attended this event that listen to this podcast. Here's what I'll say. I spent a lot of time and effort and care making cranberries gravy and a cranberry meringue pie for Thanksgiving this year. Cranberry meringue pie was one of my finest ideas. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm very proud of that idea.
I've never had it.
So it's just, imagine a lemon meringue pie, but I made a cranberry curd instead.
Okay.
All right. And I used an orange ginger meringue on top of it. It's very good. Very good.
Okay.
Didn't hold up. All right. I mean, it tasted great. The problem is that the heat kind of made it fall apart as we were traveling because I didn't get the chance to cool because I had to pull it out too soon. But the flavors were there.
Okay.
But I worked very hard on it.
Yes, you did.
I did. For 24 hours, I cooked and monitored a turkey stock from scratch, cooking in my Dutch oven, which turned into the turkey gravy, which was delicious. I did not get to enjoy much of it because everybody ate it. It was gone. There were no leftovers. which is the sign of a good gravy, I think.
I completely agree. Couldn't agree more.
I also was tasked with making the cranberries. Now, it's not that I don't enjoy making cranberries. It's just that I think that cranberries are kind of the thing that it becomes a bit of an afterthought on Thanksgiving dinner.
I must admit, I'm not a cranberry person.
Do you like the canned cranberries or the real cranberries?
I don't like cranberries at all, except for maybe a vodka cranberry.
Okay. I think that's fair. Zach, what about you? What's your opinion on cranberries here? What's your take?
So I know I'm probably in the minority, but I lean a little bit towards the can because of the texture.
I'm glad you said that, and here's why. My wife also prefers the texture of the canned cranberries, right? She doesn't like the seeds. She doesn't like the skins. I cooked these cranberries for 4 hours. I ran them through an immersion blender with all the spices and the sugar and the maple syrup that I put in there. And then I put it through a food mill and a fine mesh sieve. I got rid of all of the crap that was in it.
There were no seeds.
There were no seeds. There were no skins.
Of course.
I added a stick of butter, and I added 4 packs of gelatin, and I threw it in the fridge. I made the canned stuff. Right? Smooth. No lumps, nothing. It was supposed to be spreadable.
Right.
And we show up to Thanksgiving with a new dish that I bought. I bought a new dish for this. Filled it with my cranberry creation. And I was asked, did you make the cranberries? Yes, I made the cranberries. That's what I was tasked with. Oh, good, because I brought 2 cans of the canned stuff. I'm really glad I spent all that time making cranberries and cranberry meringue pie just for you to bring the canned ocean spray bullshit. Thank you for that. I'm real glad that that's what everybody else decided to eat instead of the stuff that I slaved over and worked really hard to create so that you could have your texture of cranberries without.
Here's my question on this, because I've thought about this since you brought it up. Right? So my first question is, why do you think the people ate the other stuff?
Because it was at the front of the line and mine was at the back of the line. I did not set up the buffet line.
Okay, so it was the location. When you said in front of, I pictured, like front of the counter, back of the counter, but you're saying front of the line, back of the line.
Correct.
Okay, so that I can see. That gives me some different perspective. And like I said to you, and listen, I'm gonna, this I may take crap for as well. But if we go to Thanksgiving and you make the stuffing and somebody else shows up with stovetop stuffing, I am eating the stovetop because you can't beat it. You can't.
See, and that's the thing is I know that I can't beat it. I'm not
Are
trying
you sure
to
you
beat
can't
it.
doctor it up and beat it a little bit? I think you could put some sausage in there like
Tim,
my mom does.
Tim.
It's delightful.
Tim, come over here for just a second. It's just you and me.
Just you and I? Okay.
I'll beat the fuck out of that stuffing. All right.
Yeah.
No one's touching my stuffing. All right. My stuffing's. Did you hear me? I made turkey stock from scratch.
So you're saying that yours is better than the stovetop stuffing?
I think I could beat it. But I'm not going to argue with Zach over his favorite stuffing. All right. If Zach wants to eat the stovetop, that's fine. My gripe isn't with the people who eat it. All right. My gripe is not with the people who choose the alternative option. If it were an equal choice and they were sitting in the same spot, I believe that about half of my cranberries would have been eaten and about half of the canned cranberries would have been eaten. All right. Given that option. My gripe was with the person bringing it.
You're saying they were on a line, that they one-upped you.
I'm saying that they didn't think either they didn't think that what I made was going to be good enough, which what in my track record indicates that, or 2, you didn't trust that I was going to bring it,
right?
And
is it possible that it was a quantity issue?
I don't know how it could have been.
Okay, I'm just throwing that out there because, I know we've had holidays where cheesy potatoes are the thing at Easter, and I'll be honest, the cheesy potatoes are gone right away,
immediately.
Right? You don't go back for a second round of cheesy potatoes because they're not there.
There's no second round is available.
Right. So right, that's where I'd be like, well, I could also bring cheesy potatoes and we could have twice as much. And so I thought that was a possibility as well.
Look, not an unfair question, not an unfair assumption. I made a metric shit ton of cranberry. If you looked at my dish and thought we might have a quantity issue, my question would be, how much fucking cranberry are you eating? Because my rule of thumb is this, right? We had a lot of people there, right, for dinner.
Yeah.
My rule of thumb is that I have to remember that this is not the only thing we're eating.
Right.
Right? There are other things on these people's plates that they are going to enjoy. I have to make enough for them to enjoy a spoonful or two. Right? I'm making a side. I'm not making the turkey. People aren't coming up for seconds and thirds of the cranberries. If they are, good on me. I'm happy for that. But like, we're trading huge plays in this game. There was a 96-yard pass to Mims for a touchdown to put Denver up 28-17, and Jerry Jeudy just caught a 70-yard ball to close the gap. Sorry.
Come on, Browns.
All right, I got one last question for you on it.
Yeah, I got it. What's up?
Okay. Is it possible that there's a lot of bluster and a lot of talk, but in the end, you're just the Ohio State of cooking, and you're just not good enough?
That maybe you're too finessey, and that you didn't do the bait. Like you're not a tough guy team. Like your ocean spray is just tougher.
You know, when the game is over, you'll come on the podcast and try to grab someone's flag of cranberry sauce, but in the time, it just wasn't good enough.
If we were in person, I'd fight you right now. Here's one. No, not possible. I'll tell you why.
I spent a lot of my work day today punching up that.
I truly wish my mic could pick up how hard I'm breathing right now. Because I'm hot. I'm hot right now.
Zach wrote it to me in an email. He's like, "Hey, I'm just proofing this with you. What do you think of this one? Did I workshop it?"
That's not true. That's
not true. No, you did not.
I have worked out.
Here's the thing.
Before, but
here's the thing. I'm not even mad at you, Zach. I'm not mad at Michigan. I'm not mad at Michigan fans. I'm not mad at Ohio State players. I get why.
You made that very clear.
How about at Sawyer?
No, I'm not mad at Sawyer. I get it.
Soft as fuck.
I don't think he is. I think he's going to be a fine NFL player. I think that.
I don't want him on my team.
I think that there's a
you know what I bet you though? I bet
he'd
eat your cranberries though.
You know what? I bet he fucking would.
I bet he'd eat your cranberries.
I bet he wouldn't bring a can of ocean spray.
There's no way if he showed up to the Nelson Kane family gathering, he'd be bringing he'd be bringing dinner rolls. That's what he'd be bringing.
I bought 7 pounds of cranberries.
Jesus
Christ. Well, that's out of line. I mean, that's out of line. What are you doing?
I made 5 of them.
And you're still eating them.
I always no, because it only made the one dish.
I tell you,
because we're not eating all 7 pounds. I'm cooking them down and then I'm straining the juice out of them.
Yeah.
Brooke mentioned that she just likes to eat cranberries.
Just straight up.
I got a whole pan. Does she want some?
I would if you could get them to Fargo.
$7 for the dish. I'll send it to her.
I mean, it was good, right? The kids were, right. Brooke was back in town. We did the string game Thanksgiving morning, but kind of Sunday we got together at my mom and dad's, and the kids do gingerbread houses. So, first of all, I had to go over the day before to assemble all the gingerbread houses. Right, so it's just decorating. And so my mom, God bless her, messages me like 4 times that day, like, "Hey, I gotta go to this craft thing. I won't be home yet. Oh, we're running late. Oh, can you come over here? So finally, like, I drive over there, which is not far, right? She lives less than a mile from me. And I get there, and my brother is in the driveway with his kids. And I'm like, and they're leaving. And I'm like, how long have you been here? It's like, I was here for like an hour or two. Like, the kids went to, or one of his kids went to this craft thing with my mom. And I'm like, you couldn't fucking put together the gingerbread houses while you were sitting here for an hour and a half waiting for them? Like, my God. So anyways, assembled the houses. But it was kind of fun because everyone's got their own house except for Brooke and John, right? Her boyfriend came with. And they did their little house and put it all together, and it's good. Like, as a dad, it's good to see your daughter pick a good person to have in her life. Right?
That's all you want, right?
Right. So watching them, that was good to watch. And then Carter was also there with his girlfriend. And this was the meet, the first time I've met her.
Oh,
so they were putting
wow,
together
that's bold to bring her to a holiday like that. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. Do you call that as a holiday, gingerbread assembling?
No, but I mean, like Thanksgiving weekend, that kind of I mean, there's a holiday feel around it.
But that was also like good just to watch them do their thing and put theirs together, and so yeah, it was a good weekend.
The Hallmark card is basically what you just created there. I mean, that's the stuff of movies.
To have them all together and doing their thing, and then Carter dipped out a little bit early. I'm sure he was partially nervous. Well, he got there and he locked his keys in the car.
Oh, jeez.
Right. So he's texting me from outside. He's like, Dad, I'm an idiot. I just locked the keys in the car. It's not a big deal because, like I said, we live less than a mile away.
Yep.
So I just buzzed home and got the other set. So I'm sure he was nervous a little bit.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
And then, so they ducked out after a little bit. Brooke hung around a little longer. Did some games with the kids and the cousins. Her boyfriend, John, my little guys are just getting into Pokemon. And John knows Pokemon stuff, so he was there with them and talking about it and trading cards and that kind of stuff.
Oh, he became a very popular guy then in the
they love Johnny Bootleg over here. And then but then I kind of felt bad because, like, I looked at the weather stuff and it's like, oh, there's snow coming into Fargo tonight.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like, I'm like, Brooke, hey, you probably should go soon because it's coming. And she doesn't like driving in the weather and things like that. So it felt bad, right? Because, like, there's part of me that's like, well, I wish she could stay here for another, 4 or 5 hours before she left. But
100%.
So I mentioned that to her. They left shortly after that. And she did text me that night and said, it's a good thing you said something because the last 2-3 miles were pretty bad weather-wise. And so I can't imagine if they had been another, hour or two.
Yeah, exactly. Last 2-3 miles is way better than last 100 or
Right.
last. Yeah, I agree with you 100%.
I don't know if you've driven that stretch, but
I have. Yeah.
There's not a lot.
There's not a lot. No,
Right.
especially when you get out there. Yeah. It's wide open.
Once you leave Alexandria, it's a lot of farm.
It's just a lot of open road, which is why that highway gets closed a lot because
the weather just
will never. Yep.
When I've driven, like, there's that stretch from like Elk River to St. Cloud on 10.
Yeah.
Where it's the same thing. It's a lot of open roads. On windy days, it's totally impossible to drive.
It's hard. It's hard.
I used to drive a little Mitsubishi Mirage, and I'd be all over the road, just trying to keep control of that thing.
And I would say 94 is worse in that stretch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's not any towns even in there. Like, so,
yeah, and there's no stoplight, so there's no way to slow down. Like, at least on 10, you can get into some 30-mile-an-hour towns, and you can kind of, find some stopping points. None of that on the highway.
So the good news is, right, there's 13 work days now until break.
Yep, 14, I think, total, but I think you're right.
Why? Well, so different. You and I are different.
Yeah. Oh, you get a flex day in there somewhere.
Yeah. So our flex day is the Friday before break.
Oh yeah.
We
So
did
yeah,
not-
we're digging. We're
Yeah, we
digging
did
for the
not
whole way.
flex like you guys did. We haven't used one yet.
Oh yeah. So yeah, we're in it the whole way here. 3 weeks.
Also for us, I'm in Vegas for 3 of them. Right, we're going Sunday to Wednesday next week.
Lucky son of a bitch.
So, right, I mean, the plan maybe is a call-in from Vegas to the pod.
That would be lovely.
We'll have to kind of coordinate and see where we're at and what we're doing. But so yeah, I mean, we're like, I got like 7 days of work left.
Hang in there.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, guys, we went an hour 25. First of all, Zach's voice. I didn't think we were going to get an hour out of Zach. We got an hour 25. That was really impressive. Rhino, we got our. I'm good to see you smiling, my friend. I was so worried about you. I'm glad we got that out of your system. Do you feel better?
I feel fine.
I feel like we didn't lay it on as thick as we could.
I think we could have. We took it easy a little bit. We could have definitely gone after it a little harder.
I could go for another 15 minutes.
No, I don't want you to do that. I don't want you to do that. I mean, although the kids do say, what is that? What are all the different slang terms? Ohio is usually like, it's a term now for something that's negative, right? Like if you have your Skibbity Ohio toilet riz, that's the Ohio State.
I just want you to know my skin crawled hearing you say that.
I will say this.
Gen Z slang or Gen Alpha slang is so cringy.
I don't get it either, but hey, whatevs, right?
I'll say this though, like just out of perspective here, Ryan. Like the fact that those games matter so much, and that like you're in a position where people are giving you shit for them, means that your team is pretty good.
No, for sure, I get
right?
that.
Like,
I appreciate you saying it.
Like I mean, it goes back to the the 49ers beat the Packers in the NFC Championship game like 4 times or whatever it was, right? And it's like, well, like to do that, you have to be in the NFC Championship game 4 times.
That's true.
And it sure is a hell of a lot better than a lot of other teams are going through. You could be
for sure. That's right. I have a lot of friends that went to Purdue, and
did get beat also 66 rock last on Saturday night to Kurt Signetti.
They're also licking their wounds a little bit. I just think that it's not frustrating for me to have people talk shit. I don't do it, right? I don't engage in it because I know that I don't take it well.
Well, that's all I do.
Yeah,
no, I know, but
I'm very good at giving it, and when it comes back my way, like I get it, I understand it because of all the stuff that I spew out there.
For sure, but that's why I really try not to talk shit because I know I don't take it well, right? Yeah. I have a temper. I feel it really hard. Not saying you don't, but like it's like I get really emotional about it. It really bothers me. And so I try not to talk shit. So, like you kind of I expect it from you, right? Like you talk shit to me from every other breath.
You wouldn't tolerate it in this pod. We wouldn't have it any other way. You have to be willing to eat some shit on this pod.
I learned from the expert. My brother is grade A at it. Alex is my younger brother, but he knows how to talk shit and push buttons and get people going.
Yeah, my younger brother's the same way, and he kind of lives his life in a way that he just always talks shit to me, which is part of why I don't like it, because I grew up with that, and it really bothered me that he just couldn't let me have anything. I don't think he doesn't really do it much this way, but he's really good at it. Watching him, so
I sit next to the class clown, and I studied him, just like waiting for government. It's the great bit. Great job, guys. Always fun to have you guys on the pod. I wish you a good trip to Vegas, Zach. I hope you have a lot of fun. Win some money. Go ahead and try not to draw out on too many inside straights, or have a good roulette run. Do something. Or craps. It's craps for you, right?
Craps is my game. Although I would like to be in my dad's position. I texted you guys about that, but he was out in Vegas this summer, and he has the Vikings at 80-1 to win the whole thing. He had the Steelers at was it 50-1? I sent you,
That's not bad. Yeah, 50
and
to 1
Notre
is not
Dame
bad.
at 25-1.
Those are
You're
3
in on
live
all of those.
bets. They're live bets right
Those
now.
are all good. Those are, I mean, who knows if they cash, but if they do, and he's had a good history. Like I remember back when we were younger, and you went out there and like he won the year that the Ravens won, that they were like 9-7 or whatever, right? The Dilfer year.
Yep.
Like my dad had them in Vegas early too. And that same year was the year that Arizona won it all with Randy Johnson and
Schilling.
He
Yeah,
had
and
that
then
one too. So he's had a hell of a run out there.
no doubt. Well, good luck to him and good luck to you. Put a good bet down there. Grab a good futures bet, and we'll take it from there. I want to thank everybody once again for listening to the podcast. You can find us on podbean.com, timpodcast.podbean.com. You can hit the search history if you want to listen to all of our NFL podcasts. We have quite a few of them. You can go ahead and find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, anywhere that you get your podcast. Go ahead and subscribe, leave a comment. We'd appreciate it. And let us know what you think. We'll have more pods coming up soon. I know Ryan and I are going to sit down and do a little couch session here soon. We've got one kind of cooking up that we've been wanting to get to that we'll sit down and do. Peak Cinema. We have one final Peak Cinema left before the end of the calendar year. That's coming up very, very soon as well. So a lot going on here at the podcast, and we certainly hope that you will continue to listen. We'd appreciate it. So until next time, for Zach, for Ryan, this is Tim saying keep your head up, and we'll see you.